The median of a triangle is the segment from the one vertex to the midpoint of the opposite side. You can't assume that it's the median unless you see that it really is the midpoint of the opposite side. So you will see those tick marks to show that it is the median. So this is the median of the triangle. The centroid of the triangle is where all three of the medians cross. So this point here, let me change the ink color so you can see that. But this point would be the centroid. The triangle has three medians. There's one median, and then there's the second median, and there's the third. Where they cross is called the centroid. You will be given certain segments and those measurements, and they'll ask you to find the missing segment, and you're going to use the centroid theorem. All right, so this is how it works. First of all, you will see that from A to X, from that vertex to the centroid, that is equal to 2/3 of the entire segment. So from that vertex to that centroid is 2/3 of the entire segment, okay? Same thing with from this vertex, B, from B to X. B to X is 2/3 of that entire segment. So you would say from B to X, it is 2/3 of that entire segment, BY. And then last, you would say from C to X. So from C to X is 2/3 of that entire segment. All right, so that means let's start with this one, from A to X, if that is 2/3 of that entire segment, that means from X to Z, that would be 1/3, right? 2/3 and 1/3. That's just like if I had a candy bar and I cut it into three pieces. If I cut it into three pieces and I gave away 2/3 of it, I'm still going to have a third left. And that's the same here from B to X. That's 2/3 of the entire segment. So that means this little leftover X to Y is 1/3. Same thing from C to X. It's 2/3 of that entire segment. So X to W is 1/3. And if you know this, all you have to do is plug the values in to solve, and that's what we're going to do next. Here it says if CW, so if you go to C to W, they're talking about that entire segment. So if from C to W is 18, we're going to find CX and we're going to find XW. So let's go back and write down that theorem from that vertex to the centroid X. It is 2/3 of that entire segment. So that means we can find CX. Let's find CX. So CX, that's what we're finding, equals 2/3 times, and what is CW? This entire segment is 18. And it says it here, CW is 18. So now you just do the math. 2/3 times 18. 3 goes in 18 6 times. So I have 2 times 6 is 12. So from C to X, from here to here, is 12. So 2/3 of the segment is 12. All right, I also know that if 2/3 is 12, I need to find out what 1/3 of this segment is as well. I could say that too. I could say XW is 1/3 of CW. We're still trying to find XW, so it's 1/3, and CW is 18. So all you're doing is substituting. And so when you multiply 1/3 times 18, 3 goes into 18 6 times. 1 times 6 is 6/1, which is 6. So XW would be 6. And if you do the math, it makes sense, right? It says that CW, you were given that CW was 18. So from C to W, is that really 18? What's 6 plus 12? 18. All right, on this one, you are given that BX is 7. I'm going to go ahead and label it B to X. So from this vertex to the centroid is 7. So from B to X, don't forget, we know that BX is 2/3 of that entire segment BY. All right, so if BX is 7, let's go ahead and plug it in. 2/3 times BY. So we're trying to find BY this time. That could be your variable. You can say X, but I'm just trying to let you see what we're doing. We're trying to find this entire segment. So let's go ahead and make that a variable. So let's let BY be X. Or you could say Y, whatever variable you choose. If I'm trying to divide both sides by 2/3 to get that X by itself, I am going to have to multiply by the reciprocal. Remember that when you divide a fraction, you multiply by the reciprocal, and that's just flipping the fraction. So now you have 7 times 3/2, right? So 7 divided by 2/3 is the same as 7 times 3/2. So I do my math. 7 times 3 is 21, and 1 times 2 is 2. So it's 10.5. 21 divided by 2 is 10.5. So this entire segment B to Y is 10.5. All right, so now it wants me to find XY. And I know that XY is 1/3 of BY, that entire segment. The good thing is that we've now found BY, right? You see, BY was 10.5. So let's find XY. So XY, you can make it into your variable if you want, but I'm just going to leave it like that so that you see what we're doing. Equals 1/3 times BY is 10.5. So you have 1 times 10.5, and that's 10.5 over 3. And 10.5 divided by 3 is 3.5. So from X to Y will be 3.5, which is the same as 3.5. If your instructor would like you to keep it as a fraction, it's the same thing. So XY is 3.5. This one is a little different because they gave us that 1/3 piece this time. It says if XZ is 4, I'll go ahead and label it. They want you to find AX, and they want you to find the entire segment. We could do both, but let's find the entire segment since we have 1/3 of it. So we know XZ is 1/3 of AZ. So if XZ, that's what's given, and so we're just plugging it in, substituting. XZ is 4 equals 1/3 times AZ. To get AZ by itself, we're going to divide both sides by 1/3. And don't forget, when you're dividing a fraction, you're just multiplying by the reciprocal. So you have 4 times 1 over 3 is now 3 over 1. And 4 times 3 is 12. So that entire segment is 12. I'll come up here and I'll write it there too. So now let's find AX. So they want us to find the 2/3 of it. So we know that AX is 2/3 of AZ. We're still trying to find AX. I'm just going to leave it like that. And AZ is 12. You just do the math. AX equals 2 over 3 times 12 over 1. I could say 2 times 12 is 24. 24 over 3 is 8. Or I'm going to go ahead and simplify. 3 goes into 12 4 times. So I have 2 times 4 is 8 over 1. So I know that AX is 8. And look, 2/3 of the segment is 8. 1/3 is 4. The entire segment is 12. So yes, AX is 8. AZ is 12. Just label your picture, your triangle, and it should help you to see how to set it up. The smaller portion from the vertex to the centroid is 2/3 of the segment, and from the centroid to the opposite side is 1/3 of the segment. Next, we have the altitude. Altitude. Altitude is just the height. It is the height. I can't find the height of this. I can't say that this segment from here to here is the height. It's slanted. If you ever see the altitude, you will always see the right angle box because the altitude is always perpendicular. From the vertex to the opposite side, it is perpendicular. So that is the altitude of the triangle. All right, here I have 3 altitudes, and where those altitudes cross, where they meet here, that is called the orthocenter. The orthocenter. So again, whenever they ask for the altitude, it is from the vertex to the opposite side, but it's always perpendicular to that segment is perpendicular to the opposite side. So you see here, this segment, there's the opposite side. So that would be the altitude. You have 3 altitudes here. That completes that quick lesson. Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. And I will add another lesson, an edited lesson shortly.